Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be Jesus Christ. Welcome to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Michael Hichborn, filling in for Joe McLean, who is taking a needed and well-deserved vacation. At 14 past the hour, we'll welcome back Dr. Anthony Stine of Return to Tradition to catch us up on news out of Rome and Francis's current trip there. At 30 past the hour, we'll be joined by Jesse Evans of Christ the King Action Ministries, based in the Cincinnati area, to talk about reparation in the face of public degeneracy. We've got a ton of red meat in today's show with a lot to unpack, so let's get started as we always do by turning to Our Lady. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. And now, your saint of the day.
Saint Eleutherius of Spoleto, pray for us. Eleutherius was a holy monk who was chosen as abbot of St. Mark's Abbey in Spoleto, Italy. Once a boy was freed from possession at the monastery, and from then on he was educated there. Eleutherius proclaimed, with perhaps some pride in their efforts, that since the child was among the servants of God at the monastery, the devil would not dare approach him. The boy was almost immediately possessed once more. The abbot quickly confessed his error, and through fervent prayer and fasting, the boy was again delivered. On another occasion, the holy abbot raised a man from the dead, as attested by Pope St. Gregory the Great. This holy pontiff and Eleutherius were good friends. On one Easter vigil, the Pope was suffering from a great physical weakness and was unable to fast. Gregory asked Eleutherius to pray with him for healing, so that the Pope could fast like the rest of the faithful. The abbot offered prayers and many tears on behalf of his friend, and when the two left the church where they had prayed, the Pope found himself so invigorated that he was able to make the full Holy Saturday fast. Eleutherius eventually resigned his position as abbot and died at St. Andrew's Monastery in Rome around the year of our Lord 585. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints-and-seasons. Saint Eleutherius of Spoleto, pray for us.
And now, here are your headline news. Breitbart reports FBI raids home of New York City Mayor Eric Adams' top two aides. New York City First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright's Manhattan townhome and Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Philip Banks's Queens single-family residence were both searched as part of an investigation into Adams' 2021 campaign. A source said that both officials' electronic devices were seized. The mayor himself was served a grand jury subpoena in July after law enforcement seized his electronic devices in November of 2023 over allegations that he colluded with foreign governments, including the government of Turkey. The residence of the mayor's most senior campaign fundraiser, Brianna Suggs, and his international affairs aide were also raided in November. In February, the home of one of Adams' special advisors, who also serves as the Director of Asian Affairs, was also searched. Just the News reports Trump says Musk would lead Government Efficiency Commission if he wins election. Former President Trump said yesterday that Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk would lead a Government Efficiency Commission if Trump is reelected to a second term. Trump officially announced his intent to appoint Musk during his speech at the Economic Club of New York. Musk pitched the idea of the commission during the conversation between the two on X. Musk posted that he would accept the role and not take a salary for heading up the commission. Catholic Vote reports Wall Street Journal analysis says surge of migrants has remade U.S. labor force. The U.S. is experiencing its largest immigration wave in generations, wrote Wall Street Journal economics reporter Paul Kiernan. Immigrants are swelling the population and changing the makeup of the U.S. labor force in ways that are likely to reverberate through the economy for decades, Kiernan continued. Since the end of 2020, more than 9 million people have migrated to the U.S., nearly as many as the number that came in the previous decade. The reporter pointed out that these migrants are, quote, younger and more likely to be of working age than U.S.-born Americans. Of foreigners who have arrived since 2020, 78% are between the ages of 16 and 64, compared with 60% of those born in the United States. And those are your headline news. Today's gospel comes from the calendar, is taken from Luke chapter 5, verses 33 through 39. The scribes and Pharisees said to Jesus, "The disciples of John the Baptist fast often and offer prayers, and the disciples of the Pharisees do the same, but yours eat and drink." Jesus answered them, "Can you make the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come, and when the bridegroom is taken away from them, they will fast in those days." And he also told them a parable. "No one tears a piece from a new cloak to patch an old one. Otherwise, he will tear the new, and the piece from it will not match the old cloak. Likewise, no one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins, and it will be spilled, and the skins will be ruined. Rather, new wine must be poured into fresh wineskins. And no one who has been drinking old wine desires new. For as he says, the old is good." The Gospel of the Lord. Haydock's commentary on today's Gospel. The reason why the saints fasted was that they might, by afflicting their bodies, subdue their passions. Jesus Christ, therefore, had no need of fasting, being God, and of course, free from the least disorderly motion of concupiscence. Neither did his attendants stand in need of fastings, for being enriched with his grace, they were strengthened in virtue without the help of fasting. When therefore Christ fasted 40 days, he fasted to set an example to carnal men. As long as the spouse is with us, we are in joy. We cannot fast, we cannot mourn. But when he has been driven away by sin, then we must both fast and weep. Ignatius Catholic Study Bible says this: fasting in the company of Jesus would be as insulting as fasting at a wedding feast. It would nevertheless become important after his departure. The bridegroom refers to God the Father being the divine husband of Old Covenant Israel. Jesus now assumes the role as the divine spouse of the church. Cornelius a Lapide, commenting on St. Matthew's account of the parable, says this: "Now this particular fast to which they refer was not prescribed by the law, for Christ and his disciples observed the fasts as well as the other requirements of the law, but it was a fast either appointed by the Jewish doctors or else voluntarily taken up by their disciples at the exhortation of the doctors. Wherefore St. Luke relates that they said, 'Why do the disciples of John fast oft, and make prayers, and likewise the disciples of the Pharisees, but thine eat and drink?' It is as much to say, Thou wishest to be our reformer and a master of perfection. Why then do we fast when thou and thine lead a genial life?" St. Mark speaks of the disciples of John in connection with those of the Pharisees. This was because of the Pharisees instigated John's disciples to propose this question to Christ. They therefore press Christ with the authority of John the Baptist, which was very great among the Jews. But they do it in an unwarrantable and presumptuous manner. This was a haughty interrogation and full of Pharisaic pride. Therefore, says St. Jerome, John's disciples are to be blamed because they are boasting of their fasting and because they're uniting themselves to the Pharisees whom John had condemned. Also, because they were calumniating him of whom John had preached. Moreover, the disciples of John said these things out of zeal for their master and out of envy of Christ, preferring John to him. We may perceive a like jealousy in certain good men, even now, who busy themselves in extolling their own founder as patron above everybody else. But in this they are carnal and childish, and betray their own secret vanity and arrogance. Thus extolling their master above others, they are really seeking to exalt themselves, such as were the Corinthians who said, I am of Paul, of Cephas. Such the apostle sharply rebukes, saying, when there is envy and contention among you, are ye not carnal and walk as men? That music means that we're about to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear from a good friend of the show, Dr. Anthony Stine of Return to Tradition. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just 2 minutes. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm Michael Hichborn, filling in for Joe McClain this week. We're joined now by our good friend, Dr. Anthony Stine. This morning, Dr. Stine has 2 very interesting videos on Return to Tradition, so we're going to talk about those videos in just a moment. Dr. Stine, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me back on. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you again. So this morning, I was listening to your programs. You've got 2 videos this morning. The first one I wanted to ask you about, Benedict XVI tried to warn us about the apostasy led by Francis. It's a very bold title. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you discussed this morning?
So Benedict XVI had a fascination with a Donatist figure from the 3rd or 4th century named Tychonius. And usually we might not look for too much wisdom from someone who fell into a heresy, but it's worth remembering that figures like Tertullian and Origen are still widely read by Catholics. And St. Augustine was fascinated by Tychonius. And Tychonius spilled a lot of ink writing about the end times and this apostasy that would be in the church. And the idea that there would be an apostasy, there would be almost like 2 institutions occupying the same sacred space, and that the apostasy would essentially be the authentic Catholicism breaking itself away overtly from the apostates who are pretending to be Catholic. And I know it's a bold claim to say that kind of thing, but when you have a Pope traveling halfway around the world from Rome to tell the clergy not to proselytize in a country that's 87% not Catholic, there's a problem. When you have a Pope who has overtly told people to not proselytize in general, chastise people for helping to make converts. If you have a Pope who routinely staffs his Pontifical Academy for Life with essentially abortion advocates, you've got a problem on your hands. And it's not just sloppy speaking from the Pope or theological ambiguity, because this is, I always tell people.
Oh dear! Unfortunately, we just lost Dr. Stine. So we'll hopefully this time it's his turn instead of yours, Michael. But it might be his connection down there in Oklahoma. So we'll hopefully get him back on. We'll give it a second. But touching on what he was saying, we were looking at an article where the Holy Father was imparting a blessing during this local trip, and he basically skipped the sign of the cross, and his comment was that he is skipping it so that his blessing would be, quote, valid for all religions, which, is kind of this kind of a trip seems like the perfect opportunity to evangelize and spread the faith and present this good example and actually impart a properly Catholic blessing where he goes. So it seems unfortunate at the least that he's not taking that opportunity.
Well, what's interesting when you read the words of the blessing that he says that he gave, he says, "I would like to give a blessing. A blessing signifies to you well, to wish something well," he began. Continuing his prayer of blessing to the assembled crowd, which included Catholics and Muslims, Francis added, "Here you are from diverse religions, but we have only one God. He is only one. And in union, in silence, we shall pray to the one Lord, and I shall give a blessing for all, a blessing valid for all religions." First of all, I want to focus on what he said here. He said, "I shall give a blessing." And then he says, "May God bless each of you. May he bless all your desires. May he bless your families. May he bless you present here. May he bless your future. Amen." He did not say, "May all," he wasn't giving a blessing in the priestly sense.
Yes, and not using the Trinity. He's just focusing on the one God, right? So
right.
In that way.
And it's what's called an imprecatory prayer, where he's calling upon, saying, "May God bless you," instead of "I bless you."
Yes.
So he was not imparting a blessing. He says, "I would like to give a blessing," but he's not the one giving it. He's then invoking God and asking God to give the blessing.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, we do have Dr. Stine back, so welcome back,
great.
Dr. Stine.
I have no idea what happened there.
That's all right. We had the same experience with Michael yesterday at the end of the show, unfortunately. So.
Yes. So I believe you were talking about this Tychonius and Pope Benedict XVI's kind of fascination with Tychonius and his Tychonius's supposition that there would be a period of time where two counter positions within the church would occupy the same space at the same time. Maybe you could pick up from there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that essentially the great apostasy that we all hear quite a lot about. Before this document came across my desk that I had on my channel this morning, I was starting to ask myself the question, do people actually believe the great apostasy is going to be a bunch of Catholics deciding to just stop showing up to Mass every day, and that it's going to be a tiny little church left in something overtly public like that? Because I don't think that's how this stuff plays out. We have all this data from Pew Research places where Catholics, not just in the United States, but in other places, fundamentally disagree with anything that remotely resembles traditional church teaching on basic questions of morality, let alone questions about the Eucharist. I mean, the bishops were motivated about these alarming Eucharist numbers to have a Eucharistic revival thing that, depending who you ask, had what seems to have been a mixed bag. It's obviously apparent that there are two religions occupying the same space at this point. And that's flamboyant or really out there to say, but remember, the Synod of Synodality, what the main minds behind it started using some alarming language like new ecclesiology, or even the synodal church needs to do this. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the synodal church is. I don't know what that means. But there are some of these figures. Now, Cardinal Mueller has an interview he put out recently about Synod of Synodality. If you want, I can send it to you so you can take a look at it if you're interested. But it's clear that there are more people noticing this, especially some bishops, that there's something really strange going on with this synod, more so than what we were told. This is not just a listening session, some glorified listening session, because the Vatican wouldn't be spending untold millions of dollars to do a global listening sessions for the sake of just listening.
Well, and they're not just listening to faithful Catholics and members of the ecclesial bodies. What they're listening to also are false religions. And they're talking to people from various diverse backgrounds and having them give their perspective and their presentations to the church and offering their requests, as it were. Maybe that would be the easiest way to put it. But it seems that the the purpose of the synod is actually to help foster this idea that we have a syncretistic world kumbaya session where everybody gets to have a say and everybody gets to work together for the quote unquote common good, without any real recourse or devotion or purpose to attain salvation. And there's no call to salvation. There's no call to holiness. It's just, we have to play along to get along. And that's the whole purpose of all of us getting together. And that's the purpose of the synod. That's the purpose of all of what we're doing. And it almost seems like a shift to, that's the new mission of the Catholic Church, to lead and foster this great kumbaya, I guess is probably the only way I could put it.
Right. And you see this with a couple of really stark examples. It was reported about a month or so ago that there are more conservative Anglican groups. We're not talking about the Anglican ordinary, actual Anglican groups who have never ordained women to the diaconate or or made priestesses, being invited back into the Catholic Church, which sounds great. I want them back in the Catholic Church. But the catch is they don't have to give up their errors to come back to the Catholic Church. Their holy orders will be recognized as being valid, which throws Leo XIII under the bus and destroys concepts of magisterial authority at that point, right? This is not hey, did your priests get reordained or your bishops reconsecrated by schismatic groups with valid holy orders like the old Romans or whatever, like a lot of these guys do? That's a different story. That's a different question. This is you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change a single thing except recognize that the Pope is the symbol of unity. You remember this papal document they floated out there a couple of months ago now, talking about how the papacy needs to change and become essentially a symbol of unity for all. Yeah, this is all part of the synodal church. And then you bring in this Amazon Rite nonsense. Remember, they want to have liturgical diversity, everything for everybody, except, of course, noteworthily, the old faith. And this is why I warn Eastern Rite Christians. You're an Eastern Rite Catholic, and you don't think this is coming for you. If they successfully stamp us out and put us into the liturgical ghettos, they're going to come for you next. Because
there's something,
they are trying to make a new rule.
There's something that stands out to me from this blessing that Pope Francis invoked here in Indonesia. He said he wants to give a blessing that signifies to say well, to wish something well. And he says, here you are from diverse religions. And he says, I shall give a blessing for all, a blessing valid for all religions. Now, the problem with this statement is that there is only one religion. In the Catholic Church, only recognizes one religion. So to refer
all
to
the gods of the Gentiles are devils.
Right.
Psalms are pretty clear.
Exactly. So and he says, what really stands out, he says he's going to give a blessing valid for all religions. How can you give a blessing to something that is false?
Why would we expect a Muslim to take anything a pope says seriously? Like, why would they care? Not that I think there's anything valid about that. Like, I explicitly said this morning in YouTube friendly terminology that those in the church who try to say that Islam, the followers of Islam, follow the same God as Christians are wrong. Because they deny the divinity of Jesus Christ. They deny that he is the Messiah. They deny the Trinity as a concept. In fact, actually say some really blasphemous things about the Trinity. You cannot say that it's the same God. Full stop.
Right.
You want to make that argument about Protestants, Trinitarian Protestants? Fine, whatever. But you want to make that argument about people who explicitly deny the Trinity, explicitly deny the divinity of Jesus Christ. It's not the same deity. So again, I don't understand what the point is about this unless you recognize one thing, the way everything Francis does. Because he does mention the gospel a lot. But do you ever notice that his gospel proclamations are always framed in materialism? We live the gospel to make life on earth better. That's not the gospel. The gospel's pick up your cross. Life sometimes sucks. Pardon the expression, but life is hard. That's just how it is sometimes. And you have to pick up your cross and follow Christ to make the most out of the life you have, and making the most out of the life you have is seeking sanctity, leaving behind the vestiges of sin in your life, and being at least focused somewhat on God.
Right. Well, the mission of the The mission of the Catholic Church is the salvation of souls. The whole reason that we have a church, the whole reason Christ came into the world at all, was to save souls, to draw souls to himself, to show them the way, to show them the path. Take up your cross daily, as you said. But the world today tells us the only sin that exists is suffering. And it's suffering that has to be fought against, which is truly anti-cross, which is anti-Christian.
And leads to more
music,
suffering.
That's right. That's right. Music means we've got to go to a break, but when we come back, we'll have some more headlines, and we'll be joined by Jesse Evans to talk reparation. Everything that we say today will be linked in the show notes for today's episode at the landing page for Catholic Take, thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
The Station of the Cross began broadcasting in Buffalo, New York in 1999. Since then, our listening areas have multiplied and expanded into several states. While our mission is to grow the Catholic faith through radio and other media outlets, our apostolate is supportive of but independent from your local diocese. Through your generosity, we are able to inspire countless listeners with the gospel and help lead them to a parish to be spiritually nourished by the sacraments.
Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. Here are your headline news. The Hill reports Putin quips that he supports Harris. Russian President Vladimir Putin joked yesterday that he is supporting Vice President Harris in the upcoming election, citing her infectious laugh and potential to change U.S. sanctions on Russia. Earlier this year, before President Biden withdrew from the race, Putin said that he preferred him over President Trump because he was a more predictable candidate. The Russian leader said at an economic forum that since Biden threw his support behind his vice president, quote, he will do the same. He will support her. The audience applauded his remark. Putin continued by saying Biden has imposed so many sanctions against Russia amid its ongoing war with Ukraine, and he suggested Harris could change or lift them if elected in November. Catholic News Agency reports Nicaragua releases 135 political and religious prisoners. Nicaraguan authorities released 135 political and religious prisoners following international pressure, but many critics of the government still remain behind bars amid the ongoing crackdown against political dissidents and religious organizations. The U.S. Department of State, which has been working to secure the release of political prisoners in Nicaragua, announced that the freed people included Catholic lay people, 13 individuals associated with the Texas-based evangelical group Mountain Gateway, the human rights activists. The Guatemalan government worked with the United States government to help secure the prisoners' release. And those are your headline news. Jesse Evans is the leader of Christ the King Action Ministries, based in the greater Cincinnati tri-state area. The website is ctkrules.org. Jesse was on the show once before to promote a public rally to make reparation in response to a Pride Parade. We'll discuss the success of that event and what they're planning next. Jesse, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you to be on.
So you did have a rosary rally of reparation, and I'll tell you, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart because as the head of the Lepanto Institute, one of the things that we propagate is the recitation of the rosary to make reparation, to fight and combat against the encroaching evils of the world. Tell us a little bit about what this Pride event was and the reparation, the reparation event that you held.
Yeah, so back in June, really all around the country, obviously, the sodomite community celebrates this particular sins. And in Cincinnati, June 22nd was, I think it's like their 50th or something, Pride Parade that they've done. So, and they always start the Pride Parade right next to the cathedral. So we just wanted to be out there making reparation for the fact that these sins are being not not that they exist and that they happen, but obviously that they're being celebrated and sort of championed and sanctioned and blessed by the state, given this space to march around the city. So, so we had a really good turnout. It was a good showing of Catholic men who came out to make reparation very clearly right next to the parade. So that was awesome. It's exciting to see that there are men sort of stepping up, to answer the need for public reparation for public sins. So it went really well.
So how were you able to put out the rallying cry and to get as many men to attend this as you did?
Well, we used basically just word of mouth. We print off flyers. We hand them out at our respective parishes. There's definitely a lot of work that goes into it, but just doing what we can and trying to get more men involved. Just having somebody lead it as well, I think, is important. Just, sometimes there's a lack of leadership, people stepping up to say, like, let's do this. This is what it's going to look like. We just a lot of hard work, and I think a little bit of online advertising helps too. So putting the word out with social media, and of course got on the show with Joe McClain, and I know stuff like that helps. So finding more connections, like that are really helpful for people on the ground. I think that's really needed. People who want to do this stuff also need to be connected with those who have the platforms, who can sort of put the word out and say, hey, we're going to do this,
So when you finally got this put together, and of course you showed up while the rally or while the parade was taking place, what kind of reaction did you get from the parade attendees?
Usually it's negative, obviously. You'll have people, with different comments and gestures, obviously. But most of that it doesn't really faze you too much, especially if you have something to do, like pray. So I think that really helps just logistically. People have a hard time imagining being able to go down and not get into conflicts with people. But if the primary focus is to make reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, then our focus isn't really on them, and we're not really bothered too much by what they're doing. And it's sort of secondary that they notice us. The main thing is to be noticed by God, and to hopefully to merit some good for these poor souls, as well as our own salvation. We have to stand up in defense of the home and defense of society and the church when needed, or else we're in trouble. It's not just something we should do. It's actually sort of incumbent upon all Catholics to defend the faith and to defend society, in some way, whatever way they can. And I think at least making reparation is going to the heart of the issue. It's going literally to the heart of Jesus. So that is, kind of the focus. So I think having that focus, it just works. It's easy to get dragged in, pulled into conflicts with people, but when you're focused like that, I think it really helps, and it's the right approach anyway.
So your website is ctkrules.org, Christ the King Action Ministries, and you set this up as I assume as the first step to holding this one rally, but I don't think that this is a one-off. It seems that you're right. Continuing your mission, and you're promoting these rosary rallies. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you are attempting to accomplish and how you are going to accomplish it.
Well, we want to try to do like 4 or 5 things like that every year, and we want it to be men only, generally speaking. We want it to be robust and just thoroughly Catholic, so lots of prayers, almost liturgical, but we're just laymen, so really we're just going to pray the rosary typically, maybe, chant some songs in Latin, but typically just pray the rosary and march or stand in a certain location. But we want to try to do 4 to 5 a year, basically to assert the importance that Catholic men need to take up public space and to affirm the faith when it's being undermined and, spit upon and hated so much. in everyday life in the revolutionary times that we live in. There's a need to affirm the faith. So, and that was we know that was something that people stopped doing, basically since the 60s. That there was this new orientation to kind of leave the cross that we're supposed to be united to, that we're supposed to take up, socially, and to go down into the valley, so to speak, and make friends with the world. But, we're not going to be their friends, and I think that's a danger. There's a real danger there. So that's the call. That's the idea with these 4 to 5 a year, is to do something, public as a way of affirming the faith. So the next event is September 14th. We're going to be doing another men's Rosary Martyr on the Feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. So the call for this particular event is for Catholic men to take up their cross in defense of the home and defense of society and our beloved church.
So that's September the 14th, which is just a week away.
Yeah.
And hopefully, so this is taking place in Cincinnati. Do you have any kind of any intention or any response to people who might want to do this in their own localities? Maybe to replicate what it is that you're accomplishing there in Cincinnati. What advice would you give to somebody who would want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, basically you just got to find a band of brothers. It should start with men. Really, this is a call for men to take up their place in the street, in the public square. But, it starts with having, a brotherhood, and that's where it goes. It's really actually hard work, because I think most men, tend to, you're finished work and you want to go home and relax or whatever it is. There's always going to be some reason to feel like you don't want to go socialize with other men, but that's the big battle in and of itself, is just doing, building a community of like-minded Catholic men who want to take action. So it starts there, I think. But there are a lot of people who are being inspired to do similar things, and we're noticing it's starting to become a little bit of a phenomenon, I guess you could call it. It shouldn't be. It's just Catholics doing Catholic things, but it's starting to take, and I think it starts with the brotherhood. You got to find even just a couple guys who will do it with you, who will commit to being there. And then if those few guys can start getting other men, who take their faith seriously and understand that we're up against, a lot. It's these kinds of events too that help galvanize and create a real Catholic community, because, talking and worrying and spinning our wheels about the problems in the world and in the church, that's not masculine behavior. If it's coupled with action, then it is. But there needs to be action. So I think without action, we get depressed actually as men, and we get hopeless, and then we get angry, and we can't help but just continue to spin our wheels, but we have to have some action that we take. And this is pretty fundamental Catholic action, just to show up and pray in opposition to the evils that are happening.
So your first event was in opposition to a pride event. So there was something that you were opposing in this particular prayer rally. But the September 14th, what was it that precipitated the choice of that date?
I'm glad you asked that, because this is not specifically a reaction to anything in particular. It is more general. And it's also, done on a very great feast day. The Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross is a perfect opportunity to take up space publicly with our crosses, with our crucifixes and our sacramentals and our flags, and to do something publicly for God, because that is what the cross, or the crucifix is sort of a reminder of. But in revolutionary times, like post revolutionary France, they took down the crosses everywhere, and we're living in post-revolutionary times where, again, we're being told we don't have to take up our cross. We should be friends with the world rather than be hated by the world like our Lord. And so this is an opportunity just to remind us of that in a very tangible, real way. And we are responding, not necessarily in specifically to anything specific, but to the ever darkening of the world we live in, and I think that pressure that we're all under with how bad things continue to get globally and locally, we know that we have to be taking action, and we can't just wait for a provocation. There's enough provocation that we should be in the streets every day, defending our faith, standing for Christ the King. So that's the idea behind the date. We have all of this beautiful, stuff in the church's calendar. So we have a time worked in with the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross to take up our cross and to stand in defense of the home of society as Catholic men. So that's the idea.
Today is First Friday, which is a perfect day to be talking about reparation. We're talking to Jesse Evans, the leader of the Christ the King Action Ministries. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. When we get back, we'll continue this conversation. Remember, you can find all the links at stationofthecross.com/ACT. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Michael Hichborn, and we are talking to Jesse Evans, the leader of Christ is King Action Ministries. The website is ctkrules.org. Now, Jesse, I am looking at your website, and I got to say, your About Us page is just packed full of red meat. It's just great stuff. You start off by saying Christ is King Action Ministries of Greater Cincinnati Tri-State area. You are a men-only group of lay Catholics working toward the social kingship of Christ. Let's just start there. Why only men?
It's a good question. It has to do with, I think the just the natural law, as well as the concept of men being heads of homes. So as our leaders continue to fail in more ways than one, both ecclesial and civil, things keep breaking down and working down the chain of command, so to speak. I think this is at least our attempt to continue to work within, a clear understanding that hierarchy is how God works. So, we want to, as men, take up the call and not, pass the buck. So we're looking to make, to take action in defense of the home and of society. And we primarily understand that to be the role of men, properly speaking. Not that obviously it's not, all of that is not, there's a great need for women to support that, with their role in the home specifically. But that is the idea. So we're trying to, as heads of homes and as like the next rung, as things keep breaking down through, to answer the call and to be public in defense of the home and of the family, and I think society, and that can't fall to women, or else society is basically at an end, So I think that's the idea behind it.
Absolutely. In fact, you say, inspired by Blessed Charlemagne of the Holy Roman Empire, and in response to the request made to the King of France by heaven through the visions of Saint Marguerite Marie Alacoque, as well as the teachings of the Holy Pontiffs and the doctrines on Catholic action and the social kingship of Christ, Christ is King Action Ministries is the current form of the Catholic counter-revolution. Absolutely. This is, as you were talking about the need for leadership from men, and then, of course, the support from women, but not to have them out there on the front lines, reminded me of the Vendée, where the men of the Vendée during the French Revolution were the ones who went out to fight. But when they saw that they were being outgunned or outmanned, they kind of went home and said, maybe we ought to, just go home and tend to our families. And the wives were the ones who showed up and said, what are you doing home? Get back out there and fight, and do not come back until you either die or kill them.
Exactly. And that's where we're at. That's what we need. That's what we need men to do, So that's what we got to find those bands of brothers, those men who are willing to do that and answer the call. And then we also have to challenge some of the weak, the ones who are not so sure and are a little timid. We need to show them that, look, like you're not going to be safe back at home. So yeah, I don't know that culturally, we're in, it's an absolute mess out there. So we need to stand up, as men and defend the home and the society. So.
Well, and here on your goals, and I think that it's really crucial that you list very clear, concrete goals. You state your first goal is to resist secularism, i.e. Americanism, globalism, Freemasonry, and sexual degeneracy. This is a fantastic goal because it's one of the things that we fight against at the Lepanto Institute. And then from there, you say that you desire to reclaim our patrimony, our religion, history, language, and culture, and then restore. So resist, reclaim, restore. Talk about these goals just a little bit. What is it exactly? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm new to the Cincinnati area. I moved up here in just a couple of years ago. I've always been kind of from Ohio in the Midwest, but I came to understand that Cincinnati in particular is a very robustly Catholic city and area. It's northern Kentucky as well. That there's just a rich history here, specifically with the German immigrants. But even going all the way back to the original diocese was Bardstown, and that was actually a lot of French missionaries who established that part of the country. So there's a French and German heritage here. And this is one of the reasons we also chose Charlemagne as a sort of patron, tying together those themes as well, going back to the Holy Roman Empire. And if you look at the crest of Charlemagne, which we have, we've created a crest for our group that also has some of the symbolism that's in his crest, which has a very Germanic side on one side, and then a very French symbolism on the other side. But the call to resist, reclaim, and restore is really just to do the mission of our Lord, which is, and I think we have that in there as well very clearly, that Christ came to reorder all things. So often Christ is kind of called like a revolutionary or something like that. This is not the right word. Obviously, he came to restore all things and to the proper ordering of things that had been destroyed by Satan and by sinful, wicked men who are motivated by the devil rather than by the proper ordering of things. So we're all about restoring proper order. And in order to do that, we first have to resist because we're essentially behind enemy lines. We have to reclaim things that were stolen from us, taken from us, birthrights, that have to do with the faith and things we used to know. I mean, a lot of it is knowledge that we've had, taken from us, and that's a huge part of it, and so that's what we do, like one of the big actions we take is monthly. So we're not just doing these types of public reparations, where one of the primary things we do is we meet monthly as men to kind of strengthen our understanding of our cultural and religious patrimony, as well as challenging each other to continue to stand in defense of the faith and live a holy life. So, I mean it's a multi-fronted battle, that we have to wage against all of this, and I think those three ideas sort of summarize it all. The resistance and the reclaiming, and then the restoration of all things in Christ, which is just to continue the mission of Christ as best we can. So, yeah.
And as an organization that is of men and by men and for men, and the leadership of men is at the forefront of everything that you're doing, I assume that you're getting support from your local priests and the bishop. Would that be an accurate statement?
Well, we're sort of new still, and we're still trying to sort of garnish some of that. We have some support from various priests around the area, but things are challenging, as you know. So there's actually a policy that we have that we are a lay Catholic movement, and we're not looking to do anything outside of the authority of the church. But at the same time, we aren't looking to basically seek approval for every little detail, since what we're doing is motivated by the proper Catholic focus. So we would like to have the blessing of the bishop. We would like to have the blessings and the cooperation of priests, but we feel that we can, begin to take action on these things, and that, that essentially at the heart of it, we're a lay Catholic movement. So, we're not waiting on that, but at the same time, we do have some support. And unfortunately, we also are unsure, if that will stay, in place. But we aim to do everything, at least indirectly, under the authority of the church. So.
Thanks so much for being with us and waking up to be with us early on this day. This is Jesse Evans of Christ is King Action Ministries. That's the end of the program for today. Remember, everything we discussed is linked on the show notes. Join us for the after show on the video streams and take part in the conversation directly through chats on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook.